Today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a
3, 2, 1. Hello everyone. Today we're reacting to Cyrus Janssen's video about why everything you know about China is wrong. And he's reacting to a very trendy video that's online. Talk about conspiracy, talk about events. But as a Chinese person who actually lived in China and went to school there before, I want to give him my honest opinion of the accuracy or what's happening in this video.
Today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a recent video that went viral on Twitter and really garnered a lot of attention. Now, the video that I'm going to be talking about features a few people, Tim Pool and a few others. And this video is really important because, unfortunately for these gentlemen, they started to talk about a subject matter that they know very little about.
I do see this, that many Western podcast hosts, YouTuber, are following the trend, right? And they're very reactive, is very reactionary trends. It's like what's going on in China. They're not really care about the truth, but they want to make headline. They want to make sure that their news gets heard, people view their channel, their podcast, whatever. So it's very sensationalized, the news, and very extreme, I would say.
That is, of course, China. And I think the reason for this is that China is a trending topic. Many people want to start discussing China. We know that China is constantly in the news. And this is a good example of why it is so important to do your accurate research and to really connect with people that have genuine experiences in China and that really understand the country. China is incredibly complex. And to the average American or the average outsider, they're not going to understand it. But this video today that I'm about to show you is very important because it illustrates what happens when somebody with a very large social media following, I'm talking well over 1 million people, starts talking about something that they know absolutely nothing about. We're going to break it down and share some truth in today's video. Let's get started.
Let's see it. I'm excited. The reason I picked Cyrus is because he seems to be pretty neutral.
Everybody, I want to welcome you back to the channel. My name is Cyrus Janssen, and I make weekly vlogs about China and its role in society today. It's my vision to help more people around the world to truly understand China so that we can foster a better relationship and avoid any unnecessary conflicts.
I think understanding definitely comes first. If you don't really know what you're talking about, why are you even talking about it, right?
Let's go ahead and start today's video by letting you watch this clip from Ian Crossland.
If you don't know, the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, which is in control of China's government right now, is enslaving the Uyghur population, which is from Shenzhen in the northwest of China. They basically, what would you call it, annexed this country of Shenzhen, or this...
I'm pretty sure he means Xinjiang. Shenzhen is a not even a province. Shenzhen is not a city. Shenzhen is a city west of Hong Kong.
This place, and then now they call it China, and they just because they need the organs, because they're kosher organs, they don't eat meat, and they can sell them to like Saudi Arabians and whoever. I don't want to I don't know too much, but this is like the crux of this.
Wow, so there was a lot of information that was said in there. Almost all of it was completely inaccurate. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to start by breaking down this clip bit by bit and try to help everybody understand what he's actually saying.
If you don't know, the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, which is in control of China's government right now.
Now, the first thing that I have an issue with is just the way he opens up this dialogue. If you don't know, the Communist Party of China, which, by the way, is in control of China's government. Now, the way that he uses his words here is very important to understand. What Ian is implying right now is that the Communist Party of China is basically controlling the government. What he's trying to basically say is that the Communist Party of China is not the legitimate government of China.
Communist Party has been in rule for 100 years, right? Like the 100-year celebration just went on. It went on a couple years ago, maybe. So they've been ruling for a pretty long time.
The reality is that the Communist Party of China is not controlling the government. It is the government, and it has been for well over 70 years. Now, this is one of the things that I really want people to understand. If we are going to foster a better relationship with China, one of the things that we must come to the table with is respect. I know that in America that nobody likes communism. I understand that. And I'm not trying to say that we need to embrace the Communist Party of China. I'm not saying that you need to agree with the Communist Party of China. But if we are having a relationship with China, we have to respect China as a sovereign country and realize that their government is different from ours. There is no doubt about it. The Communist Party of China is the official and legitimate government of China. Again, this is simply a fact. And when you say something like this, you're already starting to deceive your audience.
Is enslaving the Uyghur population, which is from Shenzhen in the northwest of China. They basically,
so much cringe,
what would you call it, annexed this country of Shenzhen, or this place, and then now they call it China, and they just...
So the next thing that Ian does is he makes a simple mistake here. What he says is he says Shenzhen when he actually meant to say Xinjiang. Now, in fairness, Ian did realize that he made this mistake, and he went on Twitter to later correct this. And this was simply a common mistake that he made. For many Westerners that don't understand China, you know, they don't know the difference between Shenzhen and Xinjiang. They actually sound quite similar. But again, this just gives you an indication of how little he knows about the subject matter. Again, if you're going to have a podcast and you're going to be talking about sensitive issues and really important issues, you really need to understand your subject matter. It's very, very important.
Think about what he's implying here. He's accusing China probably jailing millions of people, killing millions of people, genociding millions of people in that process, right? You're stealing someone's organ, they're not going to live. So if you're making a accusation that's this severe, don't you want to have some evidence to back it up? It's very interesting.
But again, let's give Ian the benefit of the doubt. Again, he corrected himself. He did say that he simply had a slippage in words. But what I want people to understand is that he made a very big mistake after that. He said that Xinjiang is essentially a country. But let me go ahead and put this in Western perspectives. This would be equivalent to saying Canada has annexed the country of Quebec. Well, Quebec is not a country. Quebec is a province within Canada. This would be like saying America has annexed the country of Alaska. No, Alaska is not a country. Again, Alaska is a state, one of the 50 states in America. This is really important for people to understand. Again, what I try to do, break it down with facts and logic. The fact is that Xinjiang is a province. It is actually the northern...
Okay, so Xinjiang, right, maybe around thousands of years ago, were part of the Tang Dynasty, where Chinese map were way bigger. And throughout like 1,500 years ago to now, modern time, it's been in the Chinese map. It's been part of the Chinese province periodically. So sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. And right now it is. But there were times where Xinjiang were independent, Tibet were independent, Taiwan were independent. Taiwan is still independent, but like it fluctuates. It depends on the ruling power, a lot of situations. It's complicated. But for now, right now,
West
Xinjiang
province in China, it's directly above Tibet.
Because they need the organs, because they're kosher organs. They don't eat meat, and they can sell them to like...
Xinjiang people eat a lot of meat, primarily goats, and lamb, and cow. That's all. Those are very popular in Mongolia, in Xinjiang, in Inner Mongolia, specifically. What we saw in the map, that's their diet primarily, because those animals doesn't need a lot to eat, and they don't eat a lot of vegetables because it is very difficult to grow vegetable up there.
Saudi Arabians and whoever. I don't know too much, but this is like the crux.
Saudi they're Muslim. Kosher is Jewish. I'm a little confused on the connection here.
Now, the best part about this clip is just how he ends there. Just listen to that one more time.
I don't know too much. But
I don't know too much. I mean, he admits it. I don't really know too much. And this really is the problem when you just start getting all of your information online, and why the internet can be such a dangerous place. There is no filter. We do not know the difference between real and fake. And again, Ian himself said it. I don't really know much about this.
I don't know really much about this, so I'm going to accuse a country that everyone think is evil of genocide. Sure.
And yes, it's quite obvious. You know very little about that because there is no credible evidence that China is harvesting organs because they're kosher and then selling them to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, that's a very true statement. There are zero credible evidence on that.
And again, this is
However, I will bring up a point if Cyrus does not mention that.
just a complete conspiracy theory that has just gotten out of control on the unfiltered internet. And it's really important to understand this because, unfortunately, with these gentlemen, they have a very large social media following. Again, we're talking well over 1 million people. And for the average American and the average Westerner, they're not going to understand China. So they're going to start taking everything as facts. Let me show you another clip.
Before we go to another clip, I want to say that there are evidence by Vice News, CNN interviewing people who escaped concentration camp or re-education camp or forced labor camp, whatever you like to call it, in Xinjiang, who are ethnically Uyghur. Those interviews, I have watched many, and it is very scary what they're talking about there. However, most of these are completely Western channels, completely Western perspective. And in mainland China, Chinese government deny all of those accusations. That's a pretty normal response. But most Chinese citizens follow the idea and don't believe that there is a concentration camp there. I mean, in fact, my personal father, he works as a engineer for a bus company, and their company were selling buses to Xinjiang because they're relatively are developing province. A lot of public transportation is not there, a lot of infrastructure is not there, and there's a huge rising demand in those areas to build cell towers, buses, hospitals, schools, and other areas. So if you're thinking in the economical terms, most Chinese provinces that's close to the sea are already pretty developed. They're not really experiencing a lot of catch-up growth. They're experiencing almost a cutting-edge growth. Markets are pretty saturated in the underdeveloped, underperforming provinces in the China, primarily west. So Tibet, Xinjiang, Xi'an, Shanxi, Inner Mongolia, in that general area, there's still a lot of development that's going on. Personally, we definitely should get to a topic: what is happening in Xinjiang, China. We're gonna make another video, and today we're just gonna focus on the reaction.
Yeah, that's what kind of started all this. Taiwan was a British colony. Yeah. It was from the Opium Wars.
Taiwan was,
yeah.
Taiwan was never a British colony. In the Qing dynasty, the Qing dynasty, the last dynasty, Portuguese took over Taiwan for a little bit. They didn't have a good time there. They just occupied it as a port city. And then what happened is World War II, Japan took over Taiwan. So Japan owned Taiwan for 20 years, but never developed the city-state a lot. It was more of just a transportation stop for Japanese fuel, Japanese warship. And modern day, we know what's going on with Taiwan. So
they set up an outpost. I think it was Taiwan, right?
Again, here we have Ian, not sure about his subject matter. I mean, you can literally see him at the end. I think it was Taiwan. Wait, let me just go on my computer and let me just Google search that just to see that I'm right.
Let me Google
this is a really
quick.
big warning to everybody out there. If you do not understand the subject, please
Ian is the guy that will. The sources, trust me, dude. Just trust me, dude.
do not go out and try to make a podcast. I'll give you an example. I don't know anything about guitars, but let's imagine that one day guitars become so popular, they're mainstream, everybody's talking about guitars. And then all of a sudden I think to myself, well, you know what? Everybody seems to be talking about guitars. Why don't I make a video about guitars on YouTube? Because I bet it could go viral. And that's the problem. I don't know anything about the subject. If I make a video about guitars, it's not going to be a very good video because I have nothing to bring to the table. And this is exactly what we're seeing with these guys that are wanting to do a podcast about China. They know very little about China, but they know that China is trending. They know that China is a hot topic. So they start thinking to themselves, well, why don't we just do a podcast about China? I can do some Google search. I can do some, some research on Twitter, and let's just go ahead and talk about it like we actually know what we're talking about.
Yes,
but that's not all. Let's continue to break this down further.
Because they have very hard times even just making their society run in some instances.
I imagine that people hate the government there. Just hate it.
Now, this is a really good clip to examine because, again, here we have Ian who is again speculating. I imagine that Chinese people must hate the government. Now, when you say...
Ooh, I'm gonna... That statement is partially true. That in recent year, Chinese people in generally, I can tell this from my family who live in China, my family that's here, are being more and more critical of what is the government doing. And I can give some example later. But let's hear what Cyrus has to say first.
I imagine. What that means is that I don't actually have any evidence, nor do I have any real insights. It's basically just my opinion. I guess this is what Chinese people would be doing.
That is true.
In reality,
this specific topic, Ethan in the video he's reacting to could be right, could be wrong. It's just based, right? Just his opinion.
We know that Chinese people genuinely do support the government.
That is true. That is true.
Again, there was a 15-year study done by Harvard University, and the results show that over 90% of Chinese people genuinely do support the government in China. And I know that that is a very difficult fact for many Westerners to understand. Because again, this is what Ian is doing. He's examining China through the typical mind of the average American.
But that's what the typical mind of average American has. Not everyone are like me who lived in China before or have family members there. Most people, like in the US, I think live 15 miles away from their mother. That was something like New York Times published. It's 15 or 18 miles. I'm sorry. And New York Times, NPR both wrote about it. So that's pretty fair of a bias though that Ethan had.
He's comparing China to America's system. And he's saying, wow, China is very different than what I grew up here in America. So I guess Chinese people must hate their government. Again, if you're in China, what you've seen over the last 30 years has been a tremendous miracle. The quality of life is continuing to get better and better in China. And many Chinese people are very proud of their government. They're very proud of their country. And they're very optimistic about the future. But again, if you're only looking at it from the...
I'm not sure about the optimistic about future. Okay, so Cyrus is making great points. Those are some great points. However, people are becoming more nihilistic in many major ways, and we're definitely going to make a video about that specifically on why that perspective has shifted from the future is going to be good to the future are more nihilistic, are not going to be good. I'll give you an example. Education system in China has been a hot debate for the past 20 years, right? And it has been getting worse and worse and worse. My aunt has a daughter, son. So my nephew, basically, he has to now pass a test to get into high school, from middle school to high school. And if he failed that test, he wouldn't be able to go to high school, and he have to just go to work immediately nowadays because the education system is saturated in China, and there's a big push on people having more low to middle level jobs instead of a high skill ceiling job. So she's not happy about that, right? And this is just one policy that impacted many family, but there are more and more of these specific policy, and they're not making people they're not really great policies, and people are not really happy about that in general. But I do see what Cyrus is saying, that most Chinese people are proud of their Chinese government. Most people in China likes the CCP. That's a true statement.
Eyes of American, you're not going to understand China. And this is why it is so crucial for people to go to China, experience it, and if you can't do that, start asking real Chinese people what their genuine feelings towards China really is.
Well, it depends. They're raised as young children to love the state, to obey the state, and they know if they dare even to criticize it, they lose privileges. They lose the ability to send their children into good schools. They lose the ability to travel. They lose the ability to have good internet because they criticized the government or smoked a cigarette in the wrong place or jaywalked. So there's also that aspect of it.
Now, this is an interesting clip that we can analyze. Ian's colleague here is specifically referring to China's social credit system. And what he wants people to believe that China's government is so strict that if you jaywalk across the street, or even if...
I actually have a data set of majority of Chinese social credit score system implementation in each province. And this is not a one policy for the whole country of China. All right, every province, every city have their own unique social credit score on stuff that it should take or not take, and not every province have it. It's only like about 20 provinces, about 50 city are implementing. 50 to 150 city are implementing their own unique system. So it is very different from a one social credit score for all that most Westerners think or believe.
If you smoke a cigarette in the wrong place, the communist government is going to come after you. Of course, this is completely inaccurate and untrue. And again, this is somebody jumping to conclusions without having any real knowledge into China's social credit system.
Most men in China smoke cigarettes. That's true.
Let me share with you an article that actually breaks it down a little better. China's social credit system is actually quite boring. The supposedly Orwellian system is fragmented, localized, and mostly targeted at businesses. And this is really important for people to understand. Once we hear China's social credit system, immediately all we start thinking about is that China's government is a surveillance state. They're tracking every move of their citizens. Even if you smoke a cigarette in the wrong place, you're going to go to jail. This is what we have been taught to think in the West. But if you actually do your research...
The perception is the CCP is evil, right? Therefore, the policy that CCP create is always evil. And that it's the purified version of how logical thoughts are going through in the West. It honestly make us a weaker thinker. Because we don't think about why is this policy good? Why would a government want to implement it? Why would people support it? Why wouldn't people support it? We ignored the thought process. We gave up on critical thinking. We just listen and we think that's probably right, and then we go with the flow.
Research, break down what is actually happening with the social credit system, you'll see something entirely different. This is a tweet from Radio Free Amanda. By the way, a fantastic follow on Twitter I highly recommend. And this is what she shares. In the end, it served its purpose. You mention China's social credit system, and people's minds immediately jump to this Orwellian system of surveillance. That's how propaganda works. Push sensationalized half-truths, maybe issue correction later when no one will notice.
And consider how you control people with tribalism. So they're raised to hate America as well. To be told that they're the bad ones, they're evil, and then they cheer when they win. We're winning, yay, they're losing. So that makes people, it boosts their morale, makes them want to be involved in that mob mentality.
I feel like generally this podcast, they're not talking about faux lies. This podcast, the three of them clearly doesn't know that these people have no idea what they're talking about. That's facts. But even when they have no idea what they're talking about, they're speaking a lot of half-truth, not full truth, but just half of it. And that's very difficult because it gets you sensationalized, it gets you filling up, it gets you, I don't know, hate the Chinese government, but it's not necessarily true. And if you want people to really think and be a free thinker, you have to give people more facts.
Essentially.
Now we're going to end today's video by analyzing this clip from Tim Pool. And this is really important because this is a great example of how dangerous this can be when you have a very large subscriber base and you're talking about subject that you do not understand. Chinese citizens are not taught to hate Americans. That is complete nonsense.
That's a little base. I personally went to elementary school in China, and I have a very different experience than you, Cyrus. We'll talk about it.
I lived in China for many years. I continue to do business in China to this day. And as an American citizen, I have never been treated with anything but respect in China.
That is true. Every American person that I have spoke to that went to China told me they had a great experience. Right? People treated them nicely. Everything went smoothly. Some of my teachers, my friends, that was the food is great. That was their experience living in China or taking a trip to China. And I kind of have different experiences because I'm not really American in most Chinese people's eye. I look Chinese to most Chinese people. I am Chinese. But if you're, a white dude, black dude, Mexican dude, you're showing up in China, you're probably all right. And you tell people, I'm American. But
Chinese
weird,
people love America.
Because-
Chinese people love American people. But Chinese people
true.
are extremely
Generally
frustrated
true.
with America's government.
Very
And they're
true.
not alone.
That's very
Travel
true.
to the Middle East, travel to places in
have
Europe,
never been
South
to the Middle
America,
East. I don't
you
know
will
about
often hear the same thing. Nobody has a problem with the country of America. Nobody has a problem with American citizens. But there are many countries around the world that are not a fan of the United States government and how they operate around the world. This is a basic fact. But it's really important that we can differentiate citizens like myself from the government. And it's really important to understand that because as an American citizen, I have no control of what my government can do.
That's true.
I know that the United States government is the most warlike government that exists in the
that's
world
so
today.
true. That's
I wish
so
we could
true.
change that. The only thing that I can do
also-
as I travel around the world and I continue my expat journey of nearly 15 years is try to be a good representative of my country. When somebody meets Cyrus Janssen, I want them to say, this guy's a good American. He has a kind heart.
That is a big point, that if you are American and you go to China, you never will represent yourself. You will represent this country. You will represent United States. And every mistake you make in China, that's how people will probably perceive Americans are. If you budget a line, they'll be, the people who see you budgeting a line will be like, wow, America is a ignorant, is a selfish country. If you ever, I don't know, pay less money or pay too much, that's what people are going to think. If you pay too much for an item, people are going to think, wow, Americans are wealthy, because there are not a lot of Americans in China. So whatever action you do, if you went to a not very like tier 2 city, tier 3 city, you might be the only American these Chinese people will ever see in their life. So important notes: be nice, be generous. You're representing your whole country when you're going to another country a lot of times.
He's a good person. He works for equality. He tries to build bridges. And this is why I have been successful in China and around the world, because I come to the table with an open mind, respecting other cultures, and most definitely trying to build bridges. And this is what I want people to understand. Chinese people do not hate America or Americans.
Okay, we're getting out of track, so I'm going to bring us back to the education parts. When I lived in China, I went to elementary school in Beijing. It was not like the best of the best elementary school in Beijing, but it was like a mid-higher tier. And I still vividly remember that in our second grade class, in our Chinese class, I almost said English class. No, there's no English class in second grade. So in Chinese class in second grade, we had reading section, and the textbook is about a lot of poetries, it's about a lot of histories, and a lot about contemporary thoughts. And the history part are focused on specifically the 100 years of shame. That's a period in China where China was weak, China was invaded by the West, people were killed, city were destroyed by Japan, by America, by German, by Spain, by the British, by the French, by the Portuguese. And I still remember to this day that in my second grade class, we were learning about horrible things that the French people did in Yuan, which is in the late Qing dynasty. What happened? 8 nations decided to invade just the capital of China and steal, rape, and destroy, basically pillage a city that's one of the world's most beautiful, or the richest city, or maybe the richest city in the world at the time. Maybe Yuan was the imperial palace, not the governmental function of the imperial palace, but like the playground for the emperor. All right, so it's beautiful, it's luscious. Their gold, their jewelry. It was rumored that in the bottom, Yuan has a lake, a pond in the middle. There are rumors that if you just put your hands in the pond, you'll literally pull up jewelry or gold, because these are things from rich people fell into the pond. That's how rich the basically the palace of the emperor were. And basically, a nation attacked that palace, and the French ultimately decided to set fire after they finished, literally stealing, raping, burning, killing everyone there. So they decided to set fire in the palace and destroy the whole palace in 3 days. And the fire basically burned for 3 days and 3 nights. You could see the smoke. It was rumored you could see the smoke from Tianjin, which is like another almost a city that's like 25 miles away. It is a horrible thing that these eight nations did. And the textbook was heavily sensationalized on Western people are evil. All right, Western people got the robbery gene, the colonist genes in them, and it's like that they will pillage China in any given time. If China is weak, this is what will happen. China will be colonized. If China doesn't have power, Western nation will attack China because China is rich and China is good. And to an extent, like the essay, the paper, it was true. All right, this was a historical event. It did happen, but it failed in many ways to talk about the reality of things. Like, why did eight nations unite together to go here, right? They were under treaties, a lot of them. Why did they work together to do this? Why was the Qing dynasty so useless they couldn't even defend their political capital? Why did Qing dynasty still existed after that event, right? And what about the aftermath? A big thing is after the attack on Yuan, after that, America feel very sorry about what happened. And American government particularly were like, damn, we're some rapists, we're some horrible colonists, and we don't want to do that anymore. That was a horrible thing we did in the past, and we're ashamed of it. And China, we're going to give you all the money back, all the money that we took. We're going to give you all the assets back. And then at the time, it was the national government might be ruling, I'm not sure. And they rejected the offer from the U.S. because they were like, man, Americans are sus. We can't take any from them. They might use this as an excuse to attack China again. So then U.S. founded it in a very good university in China, Tsinghua Daxue. And Tsinghua Daxue to this day is considered the best university in China. And that school was built with a fund from the U.S. And they're still, that's just one part of the story that was never talked about in the textbook, that people do regret, country, nation do regret of what they done. I mean, that would be a better message to send to kids in the second grade than, wow, Western nations are evil, right? So to my point is, I remember vividly, it's not the essay that I remember vividly, it's what my friend said to me. So I had a playground friend. We were going for lunch outside of school. Between 12 and 1, we don't eat lunch in school. We eat usually at home or we go out to a restaurant or something. In second grade, yeah, we're that independent. But anyway, I remember him, and we were just chatting about what we read in class today, and he told me that, damn, that's what he said. He said, man, I want to kill every single French person. I want to destroy French. I want to destroy France. I want to kill them all. I want to destroy that nation. And I was like, that's a little extreme even then. And how at the time I don't know what I was thinking, but I remember that. I remember somebody next to me felt that strongly about a country that they never met before. Like, we never seen any French person. We don't know what they're like, right? We don't know a French person is good or bad, or the nation of France are friendly or not. But after that chapter in our Chinese language, that's probably how many of the students felt. And the roots is, and partially the book is right, and partially there truth to it, that it is a real thing that did happen. But I think many time Chinese education focused on the wrong part of the event, and that's my personal story with the Chinese educational system, and it's all biased, right? This is my opinion. If you have opinion, share down below.
But they are frustrated at this deteriorating relationship between the United States and China. And it's really important that we have better facts and that we can come to the table with an open mind. Again, let's go back to the beginning of this video. We have to respect China as a sovereign country, that they have their own government and that they do things differently. China is never going to be like America, just like America is never going to be like China.
Very true.
So guys, as we come to the end of this video, I first of all want to say thank you for your incredible support. I really appreciate you subscribing to this channel and helping me out as we help more people around the world truly understand China. Again, this is an important relationship that really needs to prosper and really needs to get better. And what we need to do is we need to be able to decipher what's real and what's fake. And most importantly, if you're genuinely interested in learning more about China, please seek out some credible resources. Connect with people on the ground or people that have had tremendous experience inside of China. Because if you're getting your information from Google, Wikipedia, or what you've randomly seen on Twitter, most definitely you're going to receive some fake information, and this is what is causing this great divide in this world.
So Cyrus Janssen, he seems like a pretty neutral opinion. I like neutral opinions because I like neutral opinion that present facts, because I like to think. I want to take in the evidence, take in their opinion, take in their biases, and then make a decision myself. I don't like to be told what to do. I don't like to be told what to think. And I want to have some critical thinking and be a free thinker. And I think Cyrus in this video did a very good job of summarizing points, summarizing events, and analyzing and providing his own experience and biases. His bias is probably neutral, very neutral bias. Maybe this is hard to explain, because the reaction video by Ethan we saw, they were extremely against CCP, right? So they hate CCP for whatever reason. I don't think they ever been to China before, and they just hate CCP because they hate CCP. All right. Now, the reason that Cyrus seemed a little bit pro-China, pro-CCP to me, because he's bringing extreme to the center. He's bringing something that's insane to normal, right? And that process, it seems like he's advocating for the Chinese government a little bit, and that's not really his fault, because he's just trying to go back to the middle. He's just trying to go to the ground of reasonable, which I think he did a good job on this video. We have to definitely do more reaction videos on his channel, on his videos, and learn what kind of person he is and what stories or experience he had in China. I'll be very interested to do more reaction videos. If you guys like or subscribe to him if you like. I think this is a great video, and Cyrus definitely watch some of his video. He's pretty reasonable, pretty insightful thoughts and ideas. If you want to seriously think about issues in China, if you're dealing business, you're doing trade, you're doing business, trade, you're speaking to Chinese people, you're working with Chinese people in China, this might be the guy. This is a pretty good video. All right, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you have a nice day, and stay tuned for more videos about China. Bye bye.